Welcome back to today's episode of My Trauma's Chronic, but I'm Iconic, where we dive deep into powerful conversations around mental health, personal growth, and the journeys that shape us. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Ams, a youth mentor and project manager who has transformed her life and career through her experience with anxiety. In this episode, Amina shares her raw and inspiring story of how she faced her struggles head on and used them as a source of strength to not only heal, but mentor others along the way. Whether you're someone navigating your own mental health challenges or you're looking for ways to support others, Am's story is one you won't want to miss. She takes us through her journey from recognizing the early signs of anxiety to discovering the tools and strategies that helped her heal. Along the way, we'll explore how vulnerability, resilience, and self compassion played a key role in her recovery and how she now empowers young people to do the same. Before we jump in, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can continue doing the work we're doing and making an impact on the world. Grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's get started. Ams, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
So hi, my name is Ams, and I started a social media page called Life After Anxiety just under 2 years ago now. And the whole premise of it was because I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety when I was a teenager. So I've really struggled with like panic attacks, generalized anxiety, and agoraphobia. And I thought, as I was coming to a point in my life where I was trying to rebuild it, I thought, why not share that journey with other people and then give back some of the tools that I've learned to others who may be going through something similar. So that's just a bit about me.
In your day job,
Mhm.
you are a youth mentor and project manager.
Yeah.
What drew you to that work, and how has your personal experiences of anxiety shaped your approach to those roles?
I think a lot of the work that I do with young people is centered around mental health and well-being. I work specifically with young girls. So I run a young women's circle. And a lot of the things we talk about is basically how to build your mental health and how to be able to spot the signs of like any issues that you've got going on. So my anxiety obviously has been one of the biggest things that I've kind of speared me on to go and help the younger generation. I kind of wanted to be the person that the younger version of me didn't have, if that makes sense. In terms of my project management role, a world away from the world of anxiety. In fact, it's probably anxiety inducing, but just in a different
Mm.
way to the anxiety that I struggle with in my daily life. But again, it's still about helping people. My job is a lot about getting stuff done, socializing, making sure everyone's okay. So I guess it kind of just like all ties into one of just the helpful side of things, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Before your healing journey, how did you approach mental health in the workplace, in your personal life? Did you see it as something that needed to be addressed?
Definitely. I think so. I'm 31 now, and I was originally diagnosed when I was in my late teens, so maybe 18, 19. So it's been a long time that I've been on this healing journey. Um, I think how I used to approach mental health was I didn't know much information about it. So I would definitely describe myself as ignorant. And I think a lot of people are ignorant when you don't know or you haven't experienced something, you tend just to think, oh, well, like, why are you scared of stuff? Or why are you feeling sad all the time if you suffer with depression? It's kind of, oh, just get over it. I think what I've learned on my journey is I think a lot of people need compassion. And that's something a lot of workplaces, I know, especially in the private sector, I work in the public sector, but the private sector need to work on a little bit more because there's not a lot of compassion when it comes to mental health. So yeah,
Absolutely, I agree. I think a lot of people, like, you have to go, like you said, you have to go through something to understand and to empathize with somebody else. It doesn't have to be exactly the same or something similar. And even then, it doesn't guarantee somebody's going to empathize or be compassionate with you.
100%.
Could you tell us about a defining moment when you realized that anxiety was a significant force in your life and something you seem to actively to manage instead of feeling nervous? Like, it's not just nervousness, it's anxiety. Makes
Yeah, of
sense.
course. Yeah, of course it does. I think the defining moment for me definitely was having a panic attack on the central line. And it's a story that I had to literally tell everybody. So I was coming home from college, and I was sat on the Central Line. And if you've ever been on the tube in London, you'll understand it's a horrible experience, anyways. But it felt like the walls of the train were closing in. The air became very thick, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. And I just thought, oh my God, I've got to get out of this space. And that was a turning point for me because after that, I then dropped out of college because I couldn't get on the train anymore. And that's when anxiety really started to run rampant in my life because I was like, okay, well, we can't get on the train. That's a bit scary. And then I started thinking, oh, well, any situation that I can't control, that's going to be a scary situation. And that's kind of what led into the agoraphobia. Um, so for me, I'd describe that as my most like defining moment. And that's when I realized, yeah, there's something deeper going on here than just I'm nervous, kind of thing. And that's when I kind of thought, let's seek some professional help.
What is the biggest misconception about anxiety that you found in your professional circles or communities you engage with? It doesn't have to just be professional, it can be personal as well.
This is a really good question. I think personally, the most misconceptions when it comes to anxiety, and remember, anxiety is a huge bubble umbrella term of so many different diagnoses that come underneath it. And I think it's that you're just nervous and you just need to calm down. And what I try to explain to people and what I'm trying to do on my journey and through my social media is get people to understand that anxiety is just like breaking your leg. So just like you would for a broken leg, you would go to the doctor, you might put it in a cast, you might get some painkillers. Anxiety can be exactly the same. You need some form of help. There is a whole book on diagnosing mental health issues, and I think people just see the whole anxiety thing and think, get over it. But you wouldn't tell someone to get over a broken leg. And if you did, you
Mm.
might be described as someone who's not very compassionate. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's trying to explain to people that anxiety is bigger than just feeling scared sometimes. It's bigger than I'm just a little bit nervous about this interview I've got going on. It really becomes a difficult factor in your life when you begin to avoid things and that go down that kind of route of rerouting your whole entire life because you've centered anxiety as the main focus, basically.
I think with anything to do with mental health, I feel like people, because they can't see it, they think they can say and do whatever ignorant shit they want to do. And you're like,
100%.
how does this add up? And someone could be crying, screaming their head off, but it could be everything except what is going on.
Mhm.
And I think there's so much stigma around anxiety, and it's like, and I think part of the problem is people be like, I have anxiety, and I think people can be anxious, but anxiety and anxiousness is two very different things, which people don't realize. Like, it's like, and people don't realize how debilitating these like mental health conditions can be. It's but part of you, it's part of your life. And it's not going to just miraculously disappear one day.
Yeah.
So much intentional work that has to be done, and so much. And it's, I think then, like, no matter how much awareness or how much work people do, there are also going to be some ignorant fucks out there who's going to make it very, very difficult for those people to even disclose their disabilities or, you know, make adjustments in their personal and or professional lives.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think as well, like just on that topic, I think trying to explain to especially like your close ones who
Mm.
may not have been through it or don't fully understand what you're going through is the most difficult thing. I think, and this isn't to bash my family or my friends, they've been really, really supportive. But I think in the early days, again, we're going back over a decade now, a lot of it was, oh, it's fine. Like it's just, you're just a teenager, you're just going through like hormones and stuff like that. And you really need to take the time to like dig in. So if you have a friend with like anxiety, it's so important to go off and do your own research and figure it out, especially if you want to support that person. Because I just for me, like I gave the example of a broken leg, it's the same with a diagnosis of any kind. Do you know what I mean? If your friend told you, oh, they have a lung condition, your first thing is not going to be, well, you should just breathe better. Like that just sounds ridiculous. So yeah, basically.
Absolutely. This has nothing to do with mental health, but I went through a very, I'm still currently going through a very difficult living situation. My friend, instead of just being like, oh, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be da-da, she's like, you know what, I'm gonna Google, I'm gonna research, I'm gonna see what I can do. And I'm like, I've never had a friend who would just do that for me. And I
Mm,
think that is because I would do that for my friends. But to
mm,
have that reciprocated, you're like, oh my God, I don't have to do all the work. I don't have to carry myself. I don't have to be in charge of my care.
Hmm.
And I think that's what people need. And I think it's also about doing your own research, but also asking. And I think one another thing that people, I think, if you have two people with anxiety, there's always one person that'll be like, "Oh my God, I know exactly what you're going through," and like we could go through a mirror image of what happened, but we're both going to react very differently. Anxiety or mental health condition is going to present very differently, and I think even people within our own communities will find that difficult to understand
Yeah.
or acknowledge.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, you put that perfectly, actually, because I think that's another thing. A lot of people think, I speak about a lot of people going through the same experiences, but like you said, people react completely different. I don't describe myself as a sensitive person. I'm quite like just crack on kind of thing. Whereas I might have a friend who they might be feeling anxious and they might cry. Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like adjusting kind of what works for other people and not being stuck in your own like way of thinking about how somebody should be dealing with anxiety. So yeah.
Absolutely, like even in your like recent post where you was talking, I think you were sitting in your car. You're talking about like in your like sitting in your car before after work before you go into your house, and the amount of different responses that you got saying, "I do this for this, I do this for this," and I think I commented it. For me, it's like a transition between one environment to another, preparing for that. And
Yeah.
other people, they just wanted to just be like, just process everything and deal with how I want the work. And it was so different. I think that's like a perfect like scenario to like explain to people how different it can be. How did you initially balance the stigma surrounding mental health with the need to take care of yourself while maintaining your identity? I think often the reason why I ask this question is often when you have mental health conditions, or even physical conditions, you get lost around anxiety. And if you choose to speak about anxiety and you want to work around it, that's different. But when you tell people, whether it's professional, like people in your professional circle or your personal circle, you'll be just known as the girl with anxiety, the girl with this, the girl with that. How did you maintain your identity and keep that at the forefront for
On
yourself?
honestly, I became AMS with anxiety. And I'm really glad you asked this question because this is something I really do want to touch on more on social media because I think my personality became anxiety. It was always like, oh, like, hi, what's your name? Oh, I'm AMS. Oh, yeah, don't go out very much because I have anxiety. It was never, oh, I'm AMS, I'm a project manager. Or, oh, I'm AMS, I have a cat. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh, I have anxiety. And it was like, I was always trying to get out in front of people asking different questions or questioning me. I think it really just applies to when I was going out. I used to be really, really scared of being in social spaces. And it's not even because of social anxiety, it had more to do with just wanting to go home back to my safe space. Um, so before people started clocking on that I might be acting a bit weird, I was like, if I get out in front of it and just say, hi, I have anxiety,
Mm,
then they're just going to kind of, you know, have an idea of the behaviors that I might be exhibiting. But over time, I've learned that anxiety is a part of me. It's
mm,
not me. Um, and it's, yeah, just like any other personality trait. Like people might say that I come across quite confident, or you might say that I'm a black woman. Do you know what I mean? It's part of me. It's not my whole entire identity. And I really think it's so important that when you get a label, any label of any kind, it doesn't just have to be anxiety, that you don't internalize that. That's what the main issue for me was. I just took it and ran with it. And I was like, well, this is me forever. I'm AMS with anxiety. And it's not that. I'm AMS and I have many different things going on. Anxiety is just another part or yeah, part of me and part of a journey or a section of my life.
I could definitely relate to that. I think I still do it to this day, where I would say I have autism and I have ADHD. There's going to be something I do which I don't see as offensive, I don't see as rude or disrespectful, but it's going to come across that way.
Yeah.
And you need to be like, I need to get like you said, I need to get ahead of it. It's like a bit like a PR
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm not rude, I'm not disrespectful. I just make mistakes sometimes. You know what I mean? And I think it's so difficult when somebody sees you a certain way and then that's all they see you as. And then you're like, there's so much more. Like I'm Royce and that's full sentence and that's who I am. End of.
Mm, 100%, 100%. When was you diagnosed with autism, if you don't mind me asking? I know this is
No, no, that's absolutely fine. I got diagnosed with autism when I was 15.
okay.
and then I got diagnosed with ADHD before I turned 17, a few months before. So it was a
Ah,
very late diagnosis.
yeah, yeah. Because obviously I've heard just not to I don't want to veer quite off topic, but yeah, I've heard like with women it's a lot harder to diagnose autism. Um, so yeah, so just was interested to see when you actually got diagnosed. 'Cause I hear a lot about like late 20s, like people are getting their diagnoses.
Yeah, like I feel like yeah, I feel like with females with autism is always going to be a late diagnosis. I
Mm.
think we learn to mask and adapt very, very quickly. Even if the adapting looks strange, it is some sort of adapting. And on our podcast, we've had people, which like coincidentally, these women got diagnosed with ADHD. They're in their late 50s, and that's common because perimenopause, yeah, is going to have a certain impact. And I think it's when I feel like puberty and adolescence have such a significant factor,
Mhm.
especially when you present very loudly, um, loudly anyway to the neurotypical world.
Mm. Yeah, I get you.
Um, Looking back, I know you said that the first, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first massive like observation of your anxiety was the trains, being in the train, having a panic attack. Were there any signs that you like previously overlooked or misinterpreted at the time?
That's another really good question, actually. Yeah, for sure. And I'm completely open about my journey. I haven't spoke about it in depth on social media yet, but I will. But for me, it was um so I was a lot younger, so maybe 2 years before I actually decided to quit college and that situation arose. Um, but I had been getting high, so smoking a bit of that Mary Jane, and a lot of people said, "Oh, like it calms them down." And the first time I ever did it, I was like, "I'm not calm. I don't feel calm whatsoever." Um, and that experience kind of made me think, oh, something feels different. I continued doing it because that's what you do as a teen. Like you just want to experiment, you want to try things out. And then there was a last time that I did it, and that was the panic attack that landed me in hospital. And it was really funny because the paramedics actually was like, "Oh, like, is there like, what did you eat today?" They was asking me all of these questions, and then when I told them, "Oh, like, yeah, like I had smoked, I got high," they kind of just dismissed me. And I understand it, I get it. It's just like, oh, you're like a teenager, you're doing these things, but I think they didn't understand the severity of what had happened to me. Like this was my first full-blown panic attack, but I didn't know that at the time, so I've gone to hospital thinking I'm having a heart attack, and they're just like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You just had a panic attack," and they kind of brushed it off sort of
Mm,
thing. And then
mm,
after that, I started feeling very much like the world didn't feel real. I didn't feel real. I was like watching myself from behind a screen. Again, at that point, I mean, we didn't have the level of information on the internet as we do now. So I was kind of unsure what was going on. I was just like, oh, maybe, I'm just still high. And this continued for about a couple of months. And then I started Googling and I was like, hold on a second, this sounds like derealization or depersonalization. So I digged a bit deeper and deeper. And then that's when I realized that it's a common symptom of anxiety. And then fast forward to the incident on the train and another panic attack. And that's what kind of shoved me over the edge, if you like.
mm. I think the thing with hospitals, they look at everything so biologically. And I
Mhm.
feel like that is the same way in psychiatric wards. They rarely look at things holistically. Like the panic attacks, I get panic attacks, but what ends and makes me end up in hospital, I have non-epileptic seizures.
Oh,
They
okay.
look like seizures. I can hear and I'm aware of everything going around me. I just can't react.
Yeah.
And and I and they would do all the sort of tests and they would think it's stress, and then they would put it down as stress, but there's nothing done afterwards. You're like, so you've held me in hospital for a week. Like even when you have panic attacks, your whole body is shutting down,
Mhm.
and you think, "Mm, yeah, you'll be fine," and then go along your way. Like, what's going to happen? And then they get upset when somebody ends up in A&E or something so often, and you're like, what do you want me to do? And I think that's one thing why I feel like mental health conditions get worse and worse over time because there's no support, there's no interventions. I understand everybody gets a budget cut, and this is going to sound so uncompassionate, but like boohoo, cry me a river, it happens everywhere. But it doesn't mean that you can't be human.
Hmm.
I think that there's, for me personally, it's very controversial what I'm going to say. There's things that you can't do because of budget cuts, great, but there's a human element. You're either a human or you're a bitch. It's
Yeah,
one of the two.
yeah.
And it's harsh what I'm saying, but it's the reality. And it doesn't take that long to do a referral. I've done
Hmm.
referrals before. It doesn't take more than 15 minutes to do a referral.
Yeah,
And you're not doing a referral for every person that's walking through A&E either.
yeah.
So what do you expect to happen?
I completely get it. Just on that as well, I think, like you said, staff become so desensitized, and I'm guilty of it in my everyday job as well. Like as a project manager, because you do something so repetitively, you tend to forget like the human element of it and people's feelings and what they might be going through and stuff like that. So I think you hit the nail on the head with the element of, yeah, looking at people as not just a patient number and you got to get them in, get them out. You kind of need to take that empathetic, compassionate route, which also goes on to the fact that the first time I went to my doctor's, I sat down, I spoke with a nurse, and I just said, I'm going through all these feelings, what I discussed before, and I don't feel real, and I'm panicky all the time. And she was like, oh, yeah, it's fine. I'm just going to prescribe you with some propanadol, and then you'll be done. And I was like, hold on a second. Like, no, I don't want medication. So going into what you said, like they look at the biology of it and think, oh, we'll just slap a band-aid on it and it will be fine. When in reality, I was asking for help. My mind is doing something really weird. And I want to look deeper into that. I don't want to just slap a band-aid on it, kind of thing. And there was no explanation either, like what the medication does, what it's for. It's kind of just like you'll get your prescription, take it twice a day, and then we'll book you in for an appointment in 6 months to check in on you. I'm like, what?
That's just so ridiculous. Like I agree with you. I feel like medication, if you're going to prescribe medication, great, lovely. We need to have a long-term plan too.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, here's like 4 weeks worth of medication until a referral or an assessment can happen or something like that. And I think it's like if you give someone a medication, they're going to become immune or they're going to have a higher level of resistance at one point. What are you going to do afterwards? Just keep prescribing higher and higher doses. And
Mhm.
the one thing that I like really respect about my medical team is they'd be like, basically, we can prescribe you if you would like, but it's going to do nothing in the next few weeks.
Mm.
And it's that honesty. And I think people in the medical world, they don't care enough. Either they don't care enough or they don't want to name it what it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and I think sometimes I feel like that extra 5, 10 minutes or just listening to someone and writing things accurately in their notes or whatever can make such a massive difference. And if you're unable to help, just tell me you're unable to help and tell me who I can see that will be able to help.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. Because in my situation, I didn't leave with that prescription. I said I want to request a appointment with a doctor. Not saying that there's anything wrong with the nurse, but I want to actually have a sit down conversation and say, here's how I'm feeling. Can we discuss the like options basically? And she kind of huffed and puffed and she was like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. And I'm like, well, I'm really sorry I'm an inconvenience to you that I don't just want to take a random medication that I've never heard of. You haven't told me what it does. You've just said this is what they use for anxiety, off you go kind of thing. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I really do.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I forgot to talk about is you said that you take marijuana, and you do it. Well, you don't have to answer this, but a lot of people with anxiety, ADHD, or like depression or something would take um mainly marijuana to self-medicate and kind of soothe what is happening. And again, if that's the case, I feel like if somebody like takes marijuana, like I feel like, and somebody ends up with paramedics or so be like, why are you taking this? In a very non-judgmental way. Not maybe the
Mhm.
tone that I said it, not that. But like, why are you taking this? Like, is it to self-medicate? Is it substitute? What is it? Because people just don't take drugs for no reason.
Yeah, agreed.
And I feel like that then it determines what sort of treatment medication you would need.
Mhm.
Again, like he said, holistics, it's not there. What does anxiety look like for you on a daily basis, both in terms of like physical symptoms and mental symptoms? Did anxiety affect your relationships? before you started seeking help?
So for me, my anxiety used to present in physical symptoms. So I went through a period of just back-to-back panic attacks, and that's what kind of caused the agoraphobia because I couldn't leave the house without having a panic attack. And then I started having panic attacks in the house. But I think the main symptoms for me, if I was to give you like a top five, is it always started with like a racing heart. And I think a lot of people go through that. And that's just normal because anxiety, I think people forget that anxiety is a normal response to fear. Like it's a normal thing. It's when anxiety becomes excessive in situations that aren't fear-based, basically. So yeah, for me, it was like heart palpitations. Then I'd get a tightness in my chest. Then I'd get this really warm feeling in my belly. Um, then I felt like I couldn't breathe. So you begin hyperventilating, and then I would get pins and needles in my hands and my feet. And I've since learned that the pins and needles come from obviously hyperventilating and not getting enough oxygen. You're getting too much oxygen, in fact, into the bloodstream. I hope that's correct. I'm sure someone will scientifically correct me if I'm wrong. Um, but so that was the physical symptoms, and then the actual like mental symptoms of anxiety was a lot of overthinking. So for me, if I had to maybe take a walk to the shop, it would start with, all right, I've got to go for a walk to the shop. Then it would be, oh my God, what if I have a panic attack? Oh my God, what if I have a panic attack and then I collapse on the floor? Oh my God, they're gonna have to call an ambulance and they're gonna think I'm silly. And then it was like a spiral of overthinking. And that really was difficult for me because when your mind and your body are not communicating effectively, which usually happens when you're going through a panic attack, it can be a really scary experience. And it really did affect my relationships. I was in a relationship at the time when I had been diagnosed and I was really suffering badly with the panic attacks. I had a really patient boyfriend, but remember, we were in our late teens. So, of course, you're going through the trials and tribulations of growing up. You're still going through puberty technically. And it had a knock-on effect because I couldn't do certain stuff. We didn't get to do the fun holidays or going on dates and stuff like that because I was just too scared. As I've gotten older, though, obviously it's really improved. So yeah, that's kind of how it's affected the relationship aspect of my life.
In what ways did anxiety influence your perception of your own abilities, especially in high pressure circumstances?
Hmm. In all honesty, and I'm going to keep it completely honest because I want to be as vulnerable as possible, it didn't affect me, not because I was unaffected, it's because I just didn't put myself in those situations. I was just too scared to even test how I would perform in high pressure situations. So I just didn't put myself in those situations. So avoiding and isolating was how I dealt with it, to be honest.
I think, like, from personal experience, correct, I feel like this is a common sense, I think, especially a bit into your healing journey. And I
Mm.
think I saw this on social media as well, where somebody said, are you healed or are you isolated? Have you isolated yourself from all the things that stress you out in life?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's so dangerous, isolation. I feel like that is, I think, the number one killer in anyone. And I don't think, I think a lot of people, when they find out that you have a condition, they like to withdraw themselves very, very slowly in like a phase goodbye. Um, they don't check or they're like don't know what to do or they don't. Did that make things harder for you? And did isolation make it difficult for you to return or heal back in the community?
Oh, 100%. I think isolation for me was the key factor that held me back and kept me stuck in the cycle of anxiety for so long. I think for me, as a person in general, anxiety aside, I do tend to isolate when I feel certain emotions. So if I'm sad, if I'm angry, my instinct is to isolate and then come like reintroduce myself into my friendship circles, etc. However, when you do that with anxiety, all you end up doing is avoiding things. And when you avoid things, they become scarier than what they probably were before. So I think a lot of the isolation that I did, whilst I was able to heal to a certain degree and get my mind to a good space, the issue of isolating and not testing my theories, because I really struggle with situational anxiety, which I spoke about. So I'm really, it's difficult for me to get on trains, planes, even driving on the motorway. By avoiding and isolating myself out of all of those situations, it just made it 10 times harder to actually go and face those fears. So my number one recommendation would be to not isolate, just like what you said, basically. Because it does more harm than good, in all honesty.
How did the feeling of self-doubt or imposter syndrome manifest for you? And did they ever intersect with anxiety in unexpected ways?
For sure. I think career-wise, um, I think I'm in quite a good space, and I always say comparison is a thief of joy. Someone who is in like the early 30s, just like me, might be miles ahead of me on the career ladder. However, I think for me, my anxiety robbed me of being able to go for different opportunities, and that's really held me back. Such a silly example, but I was actually going through my emails just before this meeting, and I came across a really old email from 2018, and it was a job opportunity in Twickenham. And because I was too scared to get on the train, I had to decline that job interview. And who knows what would have happened? I doubt it would have like propelled me into the stratosphere of being a millionaire all those years ago. But the fact that I was unable to even go to that interview shows the level of anxiety that I had surrounding trying new experiences or even pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So it's definitely held me back career-wise, for sure.
Did you have any role models or mentors or somebody really close to you who, during that time, who helped you navigate your anxiety? Or was it you primarily dealing with it on your own?
Hmm. 100%. My best friend, she also has her own mental health struggles, but she has been a rock. We've been friends for 20 years. She's seen me at my absolute lowest and continues to support me now. Um, I would definitely say her. And then in the last couple of years, I've managed to make some new friendships as well. And those people have been absolutely pivotal in, yeah, supporting me on this next leg of my journey where I'm actually stepping outside of my comfort zone and stuff like that. So yeah, I have to take my hat off to my best friend. I hope she's listening. Um, she'll understand and she'll know that, yeah, she has been a rock. So yeah.
I think it's very important. I feel like sometimes I feel like your friends or your family, they
Mhm.
will hold you through the most toughest of times and you can tap into them when you need them.
For sure.
How do you find that balance between pushing yourself to succeed and managing the anxiety that was holding you back from fully embracing your potential?
Trial and error. That's all it's been. It's been trial and error. There's been times I've pushed myself too hard, and put myself in situations that really made me uncomfortable and actually set me back. And then other times, there's been times I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone and I've done way better than I thought I ever could. It all just comes down to belief, really, at the end of the day. The mind is so powerful. It's actually just it's so powerful. It's ridiculous. So I think, um, yeah, I think that kind of answers the question to a degree.
How did you ultimately confront the realization that your anxiety was affecting more than just your personal well-being?
Um, there's lots of examples I could give of this, but one example I'd give is that my best friend turned 30 2 years ago, and she wanted to go away on a nice Caribbean holiday, and I couldn't do it. And I missed my best friend's 30th, the best friend I just spoke about that I'd been friends with for 20 years. And I think that was the moment that I realized it's time to do something about this. Like life is not going to wait for anybody. Tomorrow's not promised. And the disappointment that she felt, even though she was so understanding and she's been on this journey with me, it was a kick up the butt that I needed, I think, to kind of propel myself into really making an effort to get better.
In your experience, what role does mental health stigma play in preventing people from seeking the help they need?
We're in a day and age now where you have a lot of access to different information. However, with that being said, especially in the Black and Brown community, I think there's so much work to still be done. And I'm not sure if you agree, especially in terms of autism and ADHD. But just from the amount of DMs that I get of people who are too scared to talk to a professional, too scared to talk to their friends, and would rather confide in a stranger that they've met on the internet who's going through a similar experience, tells me alone that there's so much more work that needs to be done. Um, I'm more than happy for people to message me and ask me questions. However, my first thing always is, one, I'm not a doctor, and two, you need to seek professional help. That's what it's there for. So I think the stigma is still rampant. It's still rampant, but I mean, through obviously the podcast that you're running, which is absolutely great, by the way, we're gonna obviously beat down the stigmas when it comes to like mental health issues, and neurodiversity and stuff like that. So a lot more work to be done, but I don't want to discredit a lot of the work that has already been done as well. But that's the whole point of what we're
Mm,
talking about today.
absolutely. And I think it's great. One thing, I say a lot of controversial things, but yeah. But like, I think one thing is, I think it's great for individuals like yourself, organizations like Budget From Chronic, but My Chronic, and other organizations doing what they're doing, but there's an over reliance on services
Mhm.
and other individuals to be doing what central government or serv mainstream services are lacking. And I
Mhm.
think that will be the first step to change.
Yeah,
Uh,
100% agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. It's true. And I think what we need is more, we need to be more visible. Because when I was doing my research on starting my social media page, although lots of different people talk about like their mental health issues, I didn't feel like there was any, like a lot of people were either talking about starting their journey or they were in the middle of their journey. No one talks about what life is like after you've been diagnosed. What happens when you're trying to rebuild your life after being labeled with whatever it is that you have? So, yes, filling in those little niche gaps because I think it gives people hope as well. Although there is a stigma, it's good to have avenues where you can see that there is a life after whatever mental health issue you're going through.
what was the defining moment that pushed you to seek professional help for your anxiety? And when I say that, what I mean is, how did you overcome the initial resistance to take that step?
Um, I was quite lucky actually. I have never been opposed to going to seek help. And I think I had somebody in my family who struggled with schizophrenia. So for me, I'd seen that growing up, like not an immediate family member, but an extended family member. So I already had an insight into mental health issues. And I always wanted to go into the field as well because I wanted to become a psychiatrist. So for me, I wouldn't say that there was an issue that held me back. However, what I did find is when I did seek help, there was a difficulty in getting the right support and speaking to the right people who could help me.
Can you talk about the emotional and mental obstacles you face in the early stages of seeking help, such as the fear of vulnerability or uncertainty about therapy or the services?
Yeah, of course. I think one of the main things was people not understanding what I was going through, especially having that first experience where I was just given medication and told, go on with your life and you'll be fine, kind of thing. My biggest fear of being vulnerable is that I was going to open up to somebody and they weren't going to be able to help me, basically. Um, I think a lot of my fears came from what if what I'm going through is just a normal part of life and I feel like this forever. So I wouldn't say I had a fear of being vulnerable. It was a fear of never getting better, which is something that was holding me back a lot. And I think I've been to cognitive behavioral therapy 3 times, and people are always shocked by that. And they think that it doesn't work when I say that. And my thing is, it does work, but you need the right support and guidance and understanding of what the therapy is actually for. And I think there was a lack of that in the beginning.
Like you said, it was a bit of trial and error. How did you begin to identify the right obstacles or tools for managing anxiety? Did you try a variety of approaches before settling on what worked for you? Or
Yeah, definitely. So I have tried everything, quite literally, from holistic methods to herbs, the chamomile teas, right up to hypnosis. And for me, I found that the right balance was medication, which I still take, openly take propranolol, and it's a godsend for me. Won't work for everybody. And hypnosis. Hypnosis was a really pivotal turning point for me. I did that 2 years ago, and where propranolol deals with the physical symptoms and stops the panic attacks, hypnosis was so good at retraining my mind and the anxious thoughts that I was having. So reframing them, getting rid of them, switching them around a little bit. I don't know what she did, and I always call my hypnotherapist an angel because she was really good at rewiring my brain. So I'm always going to be of the opinion, depending on what type of anxiety you're experiencing, that you need an approach to both. You need to deal with the physical symptoms and you need to deal with the mental symptoms, and you need to maybe do that separately. And that's where I was struggling. I thought propranolol was going to be a miracle drug, and it was not. I needed a mix of both. And that's something I wish professionals had have told me as well, because I didn't realize that you could do both, which might sound silly to some people, but when you lack information, this is what happens. You make assumptions.
when you first started engaging in therapy, how did you navigate the fear of uncovering deeper issues related to anxiety? or past experiences?
I think that's such a good question. You know what? For me, it was a lot about the first time I went to therapy, I didn't enjoy it. Again, I thought there was a magic wand. I thought I say all of this stuff, and here's what happened in my childhood, and then they say, go and do X, Y, Z, and you'll be fixed. I think a lot of the time, your mentality and your mindset is the key driver behind how well you're going to get on in therapy. And I didn't realize how deep rooted like issues that I had. And of course, it was difficult. It was really difficult trying to open up and speak about those things. However, over time and finding the right person to open up to was something that was really good for me on my therapy journey. So doing talking therapy and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah.
What was one of the biggest surprises for you in your healing process? Something you didn't expect, either from therapy or your own internal work that you did?
I think the biggest thing for me was realizing that when your mind and body are not in sync, you will never have peace internally. Um, I thought a lot of my issues were just to do with the symptoms that I was experiencing from anxiety, so that the physical stuff like the heart palpitations and all of that stuff. But learning to get my mind and body in sync, that was one of the biggest surprises for me. Yeah, hands down, and just working, making sure that they're working together, basically.
Did your friends, family, or colleagues factor into your healing process? If so, how did they do it? And were those moments where you realized you weren't as alone as you thought?
Yeah, no, for sure. As I spoke about earlier, my best friend was pivotal. At the time I got diagnosed, I was in a relationship, and my ex-boyfriend was really good at pushing me out of my comfort zone. I've got yeah, a story that I think is quite funny. I was going off to Wireless concert, and I had gotten over panic attacks by that point, so I was a little bit okay with going to a festival. And I had said to him, please drop me because I don't want to get the train. It's going to be scary. It's going to be too much. I'm already doing one scary thing today. I don't want to do two scary things. And he turned around to me and he said, Ams, you're going to get on the train. I'm not going to drop you in the car. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And I was like, no, please, you have to do it. And he was like, no, Ams, because if I do it, then I'm going to hold you back on your journey. And at the time, I didn't understand that what he was doing was the best for my mental health. Um, it just kind of felt like he was personally attacking me, and that now my anxiety was filtering into my relationship and it was harming us, kind of thing. But that day I did get on the tube many, many, many years ago, and I had a really good time at the festival. And I think that push that he gave me was so needed. And a lot of my friends, my family, and my colleagues have been really supportive and just saying, Ams, we'll just try. And if this happens, here's what I'll do to support you, kind of thing. So, yeah, they've definitely, I've been really lucky. I say this all the time of having a community around me who is supportive and just gives me that little shove that I might need sometimes.
We all know that healing is not linear. In
Mm.
the early stages of healing, were there any specific setbacks or triggers that caused you to question the progress you were making?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, like I said, that experience of getting on the tube, that may have been when I was early 20s. So I hadn't been on the tube since the central line situation, which was my late teens. And then shortly after that, I then had like more panic attacks, and then it held me back again. So then I couldn't get on the tube again for another maybe yeah, I haven't actually been on the tube since that last experience, actually, speaking of that. So that's nearly 10 years ago. So I think, yeah, there's different types. That in particular, um, is something that's, yeah, set me back. And I think a lot of it is sometimes pushing myself too far, like I spoke about earlier. So sometimes there is a chance to say no, and I should say no because I understand myself a bit more. But when I was younger, sometimes I just wanted so badly to get over anxiety that I would just say yes to stuff, and then it would land me in the world of dissociation and derealization, and that contributed to my anxiety so badly. So it was about finding balance, basically. So yeah.
How do you find the courage to stay consistent with your healing practices, especially during moments where it feels like your anxiety was still very overwhelming?
Honestly, I've fallen off so many times. I've been doing really, really good, and then that would be for like a year, and then I just retreat back into isolation, like we were talking about earlier. And then I might have a really good spell for 2 years. I'm going out with my friends, I'm trying new things, and then back into isolation. Like you were saying, like healing is not like this. It's literally up, down, kind of thing. Um, so. I think just knowing that, yeah, knowing, having that in the back of my mind that healing isn't linear is something that keeps me going. So every time I might have a dip and I might feel anxious again in a situation I didn't feel anxious in before, I'm like, okay, we've been here before, it's fine. We're just having a mini little dip. Let's just sit in the dip and then you'll go back up again. So that's kind of how I deal with that.
Looking back, were there any particular periods where you felt like your anxiety was regaining control? And how did you combat those waves of relapse?
Yeah, so just before I started my social media, so just yeah, about 2 years ago, I felt like I was in a really, really positive space. I was getting out, I was doing more stuff. I still hadn't conquered like the major fears, like getting on planes and trains and stuff like that. However, I think dating was the one thing that set me back because when you're dating, it reveals a whole new level of healing that you might need to do outside of your mental health issues or your physical issues. And that really set me back. It was a lot of emotional well-being and emotional turmoil that made me think, oh, maybe I'm just not as far into my journey as I am. But it's trying to separate the two and understanding that anxiety is its own entity and emotional and romantic relationships are their own entity as well. And they both need healing, basically. So understanding that the two can coexist, but they don't affect each other. And I think that was what happened to me. I started believing that my anxiety was the reason for certain issues that I was having with dating, when in reality, dating is hard. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. Like dating is difficult in itself to take out anxiety. So yeah,
With healing, one of the key things is consistency. How did you create mental wellness routines that you could maintain long term, even when life got busy or stressful?
love this question. I do. So I created 6 daily habits, which I really do need to speak about at some point. So I said to myself, the best way to deal with my anxiety is to have routine. I'm a very structured person. I think that makes me a type A person or type A.
Hmm.
So what I did is I set 6 daily tasks. So 3 of the things were things that I already do. So it would be like brushing my teeth every day. And then 3 of the other things were things that I wanted to incorporate. Currently, my routine and my daily habits are drinking 2 liters of water every day, exercising for at least 30 minutes, practicing mindfulness for about 3 minutes, giving my house a 20-minute clean. And the last one is writing a good thing that happens in my day. I think that's 5. I've got 5 at the moment. So that's how I kind of stay on top of stuff. And that's what, when I'm feeling really, really anxious, I always go back to my daily habits. Are we doing those? Um, because I'm like a little child in that aspect. I like to tick stuff off and it makes me feel like I've achieved something and just release my anxiety. So that's one thing I would highly recommend to people is have a daily routine. So you have some element of control. That's what I've learned. Because anxiety is all about losing control. So yeah, your daily routine will enable you to have an element of control in your life so you don't feel so lost.
You know what? Right now, like I'm gonna say this because I'm like, I don't take public transport at all. I've got so distressed on public transport so many times to the point where
Mm,
buses got terminated. People are staring at me. I was like trying to run away on buses, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. But either way, and I'm just thinking right now, it's like, I'm gonna get on a tram. I don't know how that's gonna happen. Maybe with my personal advisor, I'll go on a fucking tram. I'm like, I'm gonna go on a tram. I don't know where this is. I'm gonna go on a tram.
I think we should do it.
5 years. Yeah, I want to get on a tram. I don't know what probably going with my personal advisor, but I need to get on the tram.
Yeah,
I don't,
I'm all here for it. And I want to hear the experience, document it, and show
I
it to me.
will. I was like, this is a tram. This is a military breakdown. This is a tram. And this is my house is like off like in 2 weeks
Yeah.
afterwards. Oh, honestly. Um. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna speak to him about that tomorrow. He's coming to see me, so I'm gonna make him take me on the tram.
Yes,
But
I
yeah,
I
I'm
love
like,
this.
take me on the tram. Um. Yeah, knowing me, I'll probably Uber to the tram stop, take the tram, and then get off there and then Uber.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
too much traveling. After that, I'm like, this is it. Great. We've done our like 10 minutes on the tram, saved up £8 in Ubers or whatever, or 15, and then
You're preaching to the choir. That sounds like me. I would take an Uber to the train station, get the train from one stop, and an Uber to where else I need to go after that, just to prove to myself I
baby
can do it.
steps. Yeah,
Yeah.
baby steps. Like that was me, or the MBE. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's certain things that you do in your life and you're like, I deserve an MBE. Forget that. I want a damehood.
I'm right behind you, 100%,
Yeah.
1000%.
Check out my petition to org when I go on the track. It's done and I want my damehood. Um, literally. How did you I feel like you when I say you, I don't mean you specifically, but just in generally.
Mm.
Sorry, I just did my leg. Ugh, I feel a broken leg. Anyway, uh, when you when you're going through your healing journey, sometimes it feels like nothing's happening. Sometimes you feel like you're so stupid. Why am I not healing? Why is this such a slow process? What
Hmm.
is going on? How did your understanding of self-compassion and patience evolve through your healing journey? What role did you play in healing your relationship with anxiety?
Ooh, you know what? It goes back to trial and error, to be honest. A lot of the time I wasn't very nice to myself. And I think a lot of people are guilty of that. I Every time I had a setback, I was like, oh, look, like you're useless, you're rubbish, like you can't do anything, you're gonna have anxiety forever. That's how I would talk to myself. And then one day I think I saw a video on social media and it was like, would you talk to yourself? Would you talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself when you're having those negative thoughts? And like negative talk. And I was like, I would never say to my best friend, you're rubbish and you're useless and you're never going to achieve your goals. And I think that was the switch for me. So every time I hit like a stalemate in my healing journey, I was like, you did so great up until this point. You were doing fantastic. You needed this break anyway. Like nothing needs to move forward. You're doing fantastic kind of thing. So I think it was just for me switching the really negative self-talk to something more positive in those like periods of stagnation, if you like.
Absolutely. I think empathy is such a what's the word? I think empathy and compassion is like reserved for others if you're unwell, whether it's
Mm.
mentally, physically, whatever. It's for other people and then it's not for yourself. And and you're absolutely fine with that until something blatant like that is put in front of you. But like you wouldn't speak to your friend like that.
Hmm.
And I think it doesn't help when there's especially influencers out there or people out there that will be like, I got better in 3 months.
Mm.
And I'm like, great, whatever. But what happened in those 3 months for you to get better?
Mm. Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
it's like, I think it's like if somebody has cancer and they get better in like 3 months afterwards, you're not like, oh, nothing happened and it was all one thing.
Agreed.
Like, like something happened, you went through chemotherapy, you're exhausted, you're drained, in hospital for 3 months. Don't hear about that part, but all of a sudden you're better. Like, I think you don't need to, I feel like people are not entitled to your personal information, your medical history or anything like that. But if you're going to put stuff like that, then that's when I think people should be entitled to it. Or you should be somewhat honest. Like by just saying, when I say your medical information, I mean like, yeah, it's been a trying time. This wasn't like this for A to B, like a disclaimer. Because I
Yeah,
don't think people realize the impact of what they post on social media.
100%, 100%. It's like with anything, innit? You know, when someone becomes really successful and they're like, oh, they got famous overnight. It's like almost discrediting all of the work that went in it to like beforehand, like the flower in it. You don't see the roots and the seed and it growing up and all of that stuff. You just see the flower at the end of it. And people who just showcase the flower are the problem. Again, goes back to why I started my social media page. I'm very transparent about the fact that the elements of my life that you're seeing now took 10 years to get to. So, like, my whole ethos is I don't want it to take you 10 years, but please understand that I didn't just wake up one day and my anxiety disappeared. And then I started a social media channel and started practice and preaching and telling you what to do. It took trial and error and years and years and years of figuring it out for myself to get to this point. So, yeah, I agree 100%.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw on your TikTok that you do journaling.
Mhm.
And journaling is I've tried to get into journaling. And I'm like, it's great for the first few days. But then afterwards, I'm like, what am I doing? Can you speak to the role of like self-reflection and journaling in helping you track and manage your mental health progress? Journaling is very much intentional. How do you make the space around you and the space within you to be that intentional?
All right. So first part of your question regarding journaling. So fun fact, I've actually had a diary since I was in year 3. So I was never good at expressing my emotions when I was younger. I used to bottle it up, and the only way I could get it out was either writing poetry or writing in my diary. And I've been back through some of those diaries, and it's really interesting to read actually. It's a very angry little girl. But at least it came out on the paper instead of, fist to somebody else's face. So, a win's a win kind of thing. So for me, it's been years and years. I said already, I'm in my 30s now, and I've always kept a diary. So journaling to me, I understand it can feel very much like, well, what am I going to write about today? Or like, how do I make this into a whole song and dance? You don't have to. That's my advice. You don't have to make it like, oh, I'm going to set some goals when I journal tonight, or I must talk about X, Y, Z. Just put down on paper whatever comes to you. And it doesn't have to be pages long. Like, you might have a day where all you did was get out of bed and eat toast, and then you bed rotted. Write that in your journal. Today I just bed rotted and I ate some toast. I didn't feel great about it, or I did feel great about it. Good night, speak to you tomorrow, diary. End of. I think people make journaling this whole like big thing, and I'm not trying to take away from it because I know there's lots of gurus who talk about journals and they sell their journals and all of this stuff, and you should be writing affirmations and going off on this long tangent of going into your emotional well-being. I don't think it has to be that deep. It really doesn't. It's about you. It's about what works for you and how you want to express yourself. So I don't personally journal every single day. That's just not something that I do. I tend to journal when I'm feeling quite like low, because that's how I express my feelings. However, I'm starting to journal now when I'm on a high. So it's not every day, but if I have something really good happens in my day, I tend to write that down as well, because I'm trying to change that narrative and that understanding of how journaling works. So yeah, I hope that I can't remember the second part of the question now. Just waffling on over here I am.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And the second question was one thing I think I find difficult with journaling is you have to be very, very intentional and very much in the moment. And I
Mm,
think that's the way that social media has perceived it when, journaling was a trend. Um,
mm,
how are you? But I think it's, but I think you have to be really intentional with yourself, but not always at that extreme.
mm.
How do you cultivate that space to be intentional? I am so glad you forgot the question because I've rephrased it much better now. Sorry.
Right, before I answer that question, let me ask you a question on that. So when you do journal, what do you tend to talk about? Obviously, I don't want to know your deepest, darkest secrets, but what do you actually put in your journal broadly?
I usually write what's happened in my day, like
Mm,
all the key things that like memorable for me. And I'm gonna be absolutely honest with you. When I did journal, I used to write I want to die like multiple times. Uh,
Hero. Been there.
like pages and pages. But yeah, that's it. And I think it's trying to I think it's like what journaling I think what's hard is with my ADHD I need to sit still. Like
Mm,
or like I need to sort of actually focus on something. And then with my autism is I need to like feel like I need to find an emotion, which is very, very difficult to do because I can't even name my emotions. My emotional wheel does that for me. But like it's like
mm,
I think it's the two things and I think it's very difficult. But one thing I do like that you do on TikTok is you it's like tell me one good thing about what's happened today. I think that is journal like a virtual journaling, and it's very simple. It's very quick. I do it, and that's it. I think that's more aligned. I think like the sitting down and the physically journaling.
mm.
That's it.
No, 100%. And this is why I started the one good thing of the day, because that's what I was doing like by myself. So when I say I don't journal every day, that was the sixth thing that I missed on my daily habits. It was writing my good thing of the day. And that's my version of journaling, just so I can obviously have a recap of the good things that happen in life. But also, people, even the way you describe journaling, it seems as though to you it's an exhausting task. And obviously, I know that that comes into like the factors that you have autism and ADHD. But I think when we're trying to help ourselves, we make these whole like tasks of it. It almost becomes chores. Like, oh God, I've got to drink my 2 liters of water today. I've got to journal today. I then have to do some exercise. I think we need to understand that healing is supposed to be fun. So when you're journaling, it can look like whatever you want. I used to do, when I stopped writing in my diaries, I used to do a video journal. So I would just like put the camera up and just have a chin wag to the camera and just say, oh, this is what happened in my day. Da, 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 da. That's a form of journaling. Like you don't have to write. And I think that's what people forget. Like, you don't have to do things that are not making you feel better just because some guru on the internet said journaling will get rid of all of your mental health issues. Do you know what I mean? You can tailor it to yourself. So if you don't want to journal, I would highly recommend that you just write one good thing that happened in your day, one thing you're grateful for. If you're religious, one thing you're grateful to God for. Do you know what I mean? That's the better way, I personally think.
The work that you do is youth mentoring. You work with young people who are going through their own difficulties. How do you create a safe environment where they can feel comfortable in discussing their mental health challenges with you? And is there a specific example where your personal experience with anxiety helped a young person navigate their own mental health journey?
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing is, like you said, creating a confidential space. So ensuring that my young people understand that nothing that they like explain or discuss with me is going to be repeated. I make it very, very clear to like the young people that I mentor, and the people that I provide coaching for, that if you tell me that you're going to harm yourself or you are going to do harm to somebody else, then obviously I have to like tell someone. A therapist would tell you that anyway. However, creating that confidential space and also being vulnerable. I think people lack the ability to just open up a little bit. Everyone's scared of seeming weak or seeming like they're sharing too much. Everyone has a fear of being perceived, and I understand it, I get it completely. But being vulnerable with my young people and telling them the experiences that I've been through is something that has really helped foster those relationships and build those rapports, because suddenly you're not talking to somebody who has no idea what's going on. You're talking to somebody who has had an experience that might be similar, or is just willing to open up to you, kind of thing. And then on the second point of your question, talking about an experience in particular, not to go too deep into it. So one of the young girls that I mentor, we come from a very similar background in terms of like childhood. Again, she's a lot younger than me. And I think the things that she's had to have gone through or is currently going through, I had been through. So for me, being able to tap into those experiences and share with her what I did to overcome those different experiences has been pivotal in us building a relationship. And then her being able to lean on me and understand that I've got her, kind of thing. And then I can push her in the right direction, because she sees, oh, if you've been through it, then you may have some idea of how I can get through it, or we can figure it out together, kind of thing.
What role does vulnerability play in mentorship? And how has your willingness to show your own struggles created more authentic connection with those that you mentor?
I think, I think that question actually answers itself, to be honest. The more vulnerable you are with other people, the more vulnerable they're likely to be with you. The more deeper you can foster a connection, build a rapport. And I think we see this a lot in relationships, in trauma bonding to a degree, where you open up about your childhood and then somebody else does, and then suddenly, well, I think that's the wrong term for trauma bonding, but you know what I mean.
Mm.
Yeah, I think people mistake it for, because this happened to you as a child and this happened to me as a child, we should connect and we should be friends and we should share experiences. Instead, I think when you're sharing vulnerability and then building a relationship off of that, there's a lot of understanding that the experiences that you've had in the past are in the past, and you're now building a rapport and relationship with the current person, not with that childhood experience that they had. So that's one of the things I think that's really, really important with, yeah, rapport building and being vulnerable, is finding that boundary of, am I sharing too much because I want this person to feel connected to me, or am I sharing this because I feel like this person could gain understanding and find value in my experiences, and then we can build a relationship beyond that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. How do you encourage young people to take the first step towards seeking help without feeling shameful or fearful of judgment?
Oh, you know what it is? It is hard. It's really, really hard, because I put myself as a 17-year-old and I didn't like to open up. Like I said, I journaled a lot and spoke to my diary a lot about what I was going through. Like I said before, I think it's showing them that you're a human being. Again, that goes back to the situation we were talking about, healthcare professionals. There's an element of humanity in there, empathy, compassion. You need to have that if you want young people to open up. Because remember, they haven't been on the earth as long as we have. It's usually people a lot younger than me that I'm mentoring. And I have to understand that they're building trust. They're learning what trust looks like. So I think building an element of trust is the key to actually being able to encourage young people to take that step forward and open up and talk about what they've got going on.
In your experience, what's the most significant shift that needs to happen in communities to better support young people in managing mental health challenges?
Oh, I think it's having a wider conversation. When I was in school, we used to have people come into assemblies. I don't know if this was the same with you, but we'd have people come into our assemblies and they'd talk about one of the main things was always knife crime. Like I went to school in East London, it was rampant with knife crime. So they always came in and they told us a story about somebody who got stabbed or whatever it was, and they gave us some information. I think that type of element and tackling it whilst kids are in school and opening their minds to what mental health is going to be the key to not only breaking the stigma, but also getting young people to see that what they're going through is not just them, basically. I felt very lonely because I didn't know anyone else that was going through things. It's only in my adulthood when I started talking about stuff, people are like, yeah, no, I've struggled with that too, or I really struggle with anxiety. So I think we need to be getting into schools, we need to be doing outreach programs, we need to be getting into the colleges and just speaking about what mental health is, because a lot of people don't even know what mental health is or what their mental health should be at, or yeah, in that aspect. So education, I think, is key.
How do you balance empathy for those you mentor while also encouraging them to take ownership of their own mental health journey?
This is something I'm still struggling with. Especially yeah, especially being new to mentoring and coaching. I think what I've learned so far over the last 2 years of doing it is that I can't baby people. Like some people in my life babied me, and I thought they were doing the best for me when they weren't. So I'm very firm. I'm very much like, I understand what you're going through, and I get that this makes you feel this way. However, if you don't want to feel this way anymore, you need to make XYZ changes. Like, let's look into ways in which we can incorporate this into your life. So I do take a very uh a soft approach, maybe some people would say. I know some people are quite tough, and I think you especially see it with like personal trainers who are very much like, get off the sofa and get in that gym and you're fat and this and this. I think when it comes to dealing with mental health, we have to be a little bit more empathetic, a bit more softer. But finding the balance, I'm still learning. But over time, I think it's getting my mentee or my coachee to understand that what I'm saying is for your benefit, basically. I'm not going to say anything that I don't think is going to benefit you in the long term. And it may come across a little bit harsh, but it's coming from a place of love. So that's what it is.
What advice would you give to other mentors who may be struggling with their own mental health but want to continue helping others?
Get a mentor. That is the best advice I could give. Just like therapists. So a therapist has a therapist, and that therapist has a therapist. Works the exact same when it comes to mentoring and coaching. So you cannot be everything to everyone, and you can't pour from an empty cup. So you need to be able to have somebody to also lean on and also guide you. And then they need to obviously have somebody else above them, XYZ. So definitely get yourself a mentor if you're a mentor yourself.
So we don't have to do this segment. You can choose to opt out of it. You can do it. That's up to you. Up to you.
Mhm.
So we we do this segment where we get people to write in with their scenarios. It's a bit like an agony aunt situation. Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
There's there was over we only posted this like 2 or 3 days ago, and we got like 30 to 40 responses. And we narrowed it down to five, which is really, really hard, but managed to do it. So the first one is on my phone, so I've been looking now. But
Mhm.
dear Ams, 6 months ago, I was in a really dark place. I could barely function. Just getting out of bed was an achievement. But over time, with therapy and the support, a few people close to me, but over time, with therapy and support of a few people close to me, I started to rebuild. I began I began going for walks again, getting involved in creative hobbies, and even made it to a few social gatherings. But recently, everything feels like it is rushing down again. My chest tightens when I think about going outside, and I find myself cancelling plans and avoiding people. I'm suddenly hyper aware of every little thing. People looking at me, cars going past, even the way my clothes feel on my skin. What hurts the most is that I feel like I failed. Like all the work that like all that work was for nothing. Everybody keeps saying you come so far. but they do not see how close I am to falling apart again. I feel ashamed and alone. How do I stop this spiral and start over without feeling like I am back at square one, housebound and heartbroken?
Okay. But first thoughts are obviously I completely understand. I've been there before. You think you're on a high, you're getting all better, and then all of a sudden you crash back down. This is completely normal. And I hate when people use the term I'm failing. You are never going to fail as long as you're still on this planet. There is always time to try. And I think what we need to be really mindful with our mental health is that we need breaks as well. Although life seems to be getting better, and we're like pushing forward, we need to take little baby steps. And if you don't take those baby steps or you don't take those rest breaks, what will happen is you'll break down, and that's what you're going through at the moment. Just like with the gym, let me give you an analogy. If you go to the gym every single day for 21 days and you push yourself to failure in terms of you get on that treadmill and you get off when you actually fall off, your body is not going to be able to get back up. So what I'm trying to say here is that what you're going through is completely normal. Healing is not linear. And what your body is saying to you is that something is not working at the moment. Something is not right. So we need to look into what's going on. Has there been a life change? Have you been pushing yourself too much? Do you just need rest? Because I think we underestimate the importance of resting. And when I say rest, I mean just sitting down and not having anything to do or even getting a good night's sleep. So my final points on that would just be that you're not a failure. You're currently going through a dip. And I think people need to understand that. Be happy for those dips, because we all know that when you dip, there's only one way back up. So take time, be nice to yourself, and relax in this period, knowing that you will be back up again and you just need some time to figure out what's going on internally. So I hope that you feel better, and you will feel better. Okay.
And I've always been the easygoing one in my friendship group, the one who always says yes to everything, keeps the peace and avoids conflict at all costs. But over the last year, I've been working hard to heal from past trauma and learnt what my boundaries are. I've started saying no to things that drain me. I take longer to reply to messages when I'm overwhelmed, and I've stopped over explaining myself when I need space. The result? I feel healthier within myself, also more isolated than ever. My friends have started saying I've changed, that I'm no longer fun to be around. I'm not sure whether I'm being selfish or they're just not used to the version of me that puts myself first. I thought healing would help me connect more deeply with others, not push them away. It makes me wonder, is it possible to grow and still keep the people around you? Or do you always lose people when you start putting yourself and your well-being first? Misunderstood and lonely.
Okay. I went through this recently, actually, with my friendship group that I'd been friends with for a really long time, since I was in school. To answer your question, yes, you will outgrow people. That is a part of life. When you start enforcing boundaries, suddenly people think, oh, hold on a second, you used to always say yes to me and do everything that I used to say, and I don't like this anymore. And they will put up resistance. This happens. It's going to always happen in life. Don't stop, basically. There's a level of, I found it quite difficult in terms of wording what I wanted to say. I come across very, very blunt sometimes, and that was something I had to work on. But getting your friends to understand that you're in a new chapter of your life and that you want them to learn the new version is a conversation that you really must have. Hopefully your friends are good at communicating and not just like hearing what you have to say, actually digesting that. And then secondly, what I found to be really useful is working on those previous relationships and those old friendships, but also finding people who now meet the new version of yourself, who you don't have to explain your boundaries to, who get the new version of you. So to summarize, keep the boundaries up. Absolutely perfect. You're doing fantastic. Find some new friends. Don't get rid of your old friends, but communicate with them that you are changing and there are like some things that can't run anymore, basically. And be proud of yourself for how far you've come, because it's really difficult for people to set boundaries, and the fact that you've been able to do that and you're sticking with them and it's having a profound effect on your mental health. I mean, it's a win-win all around. So I hope that's really helpful.
Dear Ams, I'm 29 and sometimes I feel like I have nothing to show for it. No career I'm proud of, no partner, no house. Most days, I'm just trying to manage my anxiety enough to get out of bed and face the day. But when I go on social media, it feels like everybody else has it all figured out. My friends are posting about engagements, promotions, new homes, and perfect looking holidays. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to unlearn everything my anxiety tells me. I know deep down that the social media is a highlight reel, but still triggers that voice in my head saying, you're behind, you're broken, you will never catch up. I'm trying to focus on my healing journey, but it's hard when it feels like life is moving on without me. How do I stop comparing myself to everybody else and start believing that my path, even if slower, still matters? Stuck and scrolling.
This is something I can definitely relate to. I'm 31 and I'm single. I'm not married. I don't have any children. So it is really disheartening when you see people on social media saying, "Oh my God, I just bought my new house. Oh my God, I just went on this like fantastic honeymoon. Oh my God, we're pregnant again and we're having twins." It's tough. However, the good old saying, comparison is a thief of joy. So just because people are posting that they've had this really great engagement and they're marrying the love of their life, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I think there was somewhere that I read that if you're going to envy somebody's life, or you're going to compare somebody's life to your own, make sure you're comparing everything. So you can't just compare the good elements of it. You need to think about, oh, well, did that person have a different childhood? I had to move out when I was quite young. I had a lot of envy against my friends who didn't have to move out and they were able to go on lovely holidays and buy really nice cars and save for houses. However, I suddenly learned that my journey is going to be different. And if I'm constantly looking at them, I'm then not moving forward in my own journey and I'm not focusing on myself. It sounds like you're doing an absolutely great job in trying to heal your anxiety and stuff like that. And this is the path where you're at. And I think we need to remember just because you're here and you're dealing with your anxiety at the moment doesn't mean that Sarah, for example, who's married with her two kids, is not going to have to face the same journeys down the line. And obviously, we're not wishing anxiety on Sarah, but you need to understand that everyone's path is always going to be different. So just because Sarah has it all together at 29 now and you feel like you don't, Sarah might not have it together at 45. However, you've learned the essential skills for when you get to 45 to be able to deal with that. So I think it's just about remembering that social media is fake majority of the time. We're only showcasing the best parts of our lives. And if you're going to envy somebody's life, you really need to think about all of the other elements that they might have going on behind closed doors.
Agreed. Yeah, and every day I put on a brave face, I smile at work, laugh with friends, and tell people I'm doing fine, even when inside I'm feeling apart. I've become so good at pretending to be okay that no one even checks in anymore. People think I'm strong, but really I'm just afraid of showing weakness. I'm tired, Ams. Truly tired. But when I think about opening up, I panic. What if people think I'm too much? What if they walk away? I've always felt like I need to be easy to love, to be accepted. Is there a way to let people in without feeling like a burden? I just want to be seen for who I truly am. Anxiety, pain, softness, and all. I do not know how to let the mask drop without losing everything. Smiling through the storm.
I feel like I wrote that. I feel like that literally sounds like me. Um, a lot of what you're saying is something that I've, yeah, really struggled with. I felt like I was constantly hiding behind a mask. I wanted everyone to think I was happy and I was confident and life was great and like I was never weak and I didn't cry. And the most freeing thing I did was asking my friends and my family and my community that support me for help. And I know that sounds really weird, and I don't mean help as in like fixing my mental health issues. I mean, it might be you might need a hand moving some furniture around, or you might need a hand doing some shopping. And through that, I was able to learn that I can trust people and to be vulnerable. Being able to, yeah, basically build trust in the closest people around you is what's going to free you from that trap of I must be perfect at all times. No one is perfect at all times. No matter how many people you see on social media portraying like perfection, nobody is perfect. And what I found from being vulnerable, from asking help, and finally trusting people is that I've built deeper relationships. So they understand me as the confident, exciting person. However, they also know that I cry sometimes and I have really bad anxiety days. And I sometimes just want to lay in my depression pit, and that's okay. Sometimes I'm a bit too loud, sometimes I'm a bit too quiet. But I think being my authentic self is something that I'm still learning to deal with. But the quicker you figure out that the people around you will love you for you regardless, the better. And if they don't, then they were never your tribe in the first place. And I hate saying that because I hate thinking about like letting go of people, but it's a part and parcel of life. Do you know what I mean? We grow and we change and we go into different seasons. And it sounds like you want to pursue a different season of your life and be your true authentic self, but you're just scared. But what I will say is on the other side of fear is freedom. And I've been through it, I've been there, and now I'm free to be my authentic self. And it took some adjustment. It did from like friends and family, but they understood. And I think once you have a really strong sense of self, other people will understand your sense of self as well. So just trial and error. Let little bits of your personality come out. Be a bit more vulnerable. Open up more to your friends and family, and just see how that goes. And then you can judge from there who should be in your life and who shouldn't be in your life.
The last person writing in said, "Dear Ams, I love that when people start with dear, it's great.
I love it.
Dear Ams, I'm starting to realise how much my past trauma is affecting my present. Every time I get close to someone, I start to panic. I overthink every text. I look for signs they might leave. They get too close, I pull away because it feels safer to leave first than risk being abandoned." Relatable. I am tired of self-sabotaging, but I do not know how to stop. I want connection. I want to let people love me. The moment it feels real, my nervous system goes into overdrive. It's like my brain is telling me that love equals danger. Everyone talks about healing and relationships like they go hand in hand. But for me, it just brings up everything I thought I had buried. Is there hope for people like me? Can you ever truly be loved when your anxiety keeps building walls around your heart? Longing, but guarded.
Again, sounds like this could have been written by me. This is something that I'm currently overcoming at the moment. So it sounds like you have an avoidant slash anxious attachment style, basically. And what I have learned is that building secure friendships with friends and family, so people you actually trust, is the best way to ensure that when you get into a romantic relationship, that you aren't self-sabotaging. I have been so guilty of it, and my thing was always picking emotionally unavailable people because I knew that I could leave immediately, because it would just be like, oh, okay, well, do you know what I mean? I knew that he wasn't available anyway, so I can just hop off. And it sounds like you're doing something similar. The best thing, yeah, that I could advise is working through it with your friends and family first, making sure you can build that trust, understanding what a secure relationship actually looks like, or a secure attachment looks like. That's going to be key. So when you then get into romantic situations, you know what the green flags are. How do you do that when your hormones are doing crazy stuff and they're transmitting all of these different feelings and facts and stuff like that, basically? The best advice I would give you is trial and error. And I know that sounds scary, but I don't want to assume, but most of us have been through heartbreak before. And the fact that you're writing that piece shows me that you made it through the heartbreak. So you need to remind yourself that even if you get close to somebody and it doesn't work out, they decide to leave, or you realize that you would like to leave, understand that that person was part of a season and part of your learning. Again, it always goes back to being vulnerable. If you are safe and secure in yourself and you know that you are able to overcome heartbreak before, if it happens in this scenario, the chances are that you're going to be fine. So go and test the waters, learn to trust people, and if you can, build those secure relationships with people that you trust in your friends and family circle first, and then look for those kind of signs in your future partners and take it from there.
How do you ensure your mental health remains a priority even as responsibilities and pressures of work life increases?
Ooh. Through my daily habits. That's why I set up my daily habits, because life can just take over. Like, you've got work, you've got, if you're doing 1,000 other things, you're doing your hobbies. Having my daily habits to fall back on, which are centered solely around my mental health and what I know is good for my mental health, is something that's how I basically manage to be able to manage my mental health whilst dealing with the pressures of daily life. So my advice would always be, have a staple set of habits that you know will be good for your mental health, and always refer back to those when you're feeling a bit wobbly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. What inspired you to pursue this topic and share it with our listeners today?
When I when I was in the depths of my anxiety, I always used to like go onto Reddit and I would say, what is life like after anxiety? What is life like not being anxious? And there was really no information about it. Um, for me, it kind of felt like people just either got better or they didn't. And then no one talks about what happens after because we don't tend to talk about the positive things in our life. Like if we, for example, have a bad experience at a restaurant, we're more likely to write a review than we are to compliment the wait staff. So for me to talk about this today, I wanted to showcase that there is life after anxiety. You can rebuild, and you need to understand that mental health issues can sometimes just be a chapter in your life. I'm not saying that they go away forever. However, I'm saying what happens is you begin to start building a new version of you that no longer centers around that mental health issue. You begin to build a new sense of self, a new identity, and that might be like internally or even externally, how you dress and present yourself to the world. And I just wanted to be that beacon of hope that I was looking for, basically, on my own journey, just to see somebody who had overcome anxiety and was able to thrive. And they weren't just saying, oh, well, we take this magical pill and like now I'm all cured and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I felt really passionate about talking about this today and just sharing my story, and hopefully it resonates with others.
Looking back on our conversation, what's the most important takeaway or message you want our audience to remember?
Have your daily habits. For sure. Make sure you have your daily habits. If you're struggling with anxiety, like I said, you need an element of control, and that's something you can control is by doing your daily habits every day. Don't be so hard on yourself. Talk nicely. And last of all, on the other side of fear is actually freedom. There is a life after anxiety. You can overcome it. You can manage and have an excellent life after struggling for no matter how many years. And it's okay not to be okay. Like you mentioned earlier, healing is not linear. You're going to have your dips and your ups and your dips again, and just understanding that dips are a normal part of the process. And as long as you're still alive on this earth, you're not failing at overcoming whatever mental health issue you're going through. You're just in a down period, and the high is going to be so sweet.
Are there up, are there any upcoming projects, events, or resources you'd like to share with the audience?
So I am well, I've already started a coaching business. So I'm running a coaching business. People can DM me either on social media, so on my Instagram, which is life after anxiety with an underscore at the end, or on TikTok. And basically it's sessions where we talk about rebuilding your life. So if you've come to a point where you understand your anxiety, you've got it not under control per se, but under control, you've been to a professional and now you're trying to figure out how you reintegrate into society, I would love for you to book in a consultation with me. We could talk about how we're going to rebuild this new life, what that's going to look like, and just figure out some goals for you. So that's currently what I've got going on, the coaching. And I can't think of any other projects per se, but yeah, I definitely encourage people to book in that free consultation with me.
And where can people find you or connect with you?
So, like I said, Instagram. So it's life after anxiety with a underscore at the end. Or you can contact me on TikTok. That's just life after anxiety. Or you could drop me an email at ams@lifeafteranxiety.co.uk. I'll pick up your emails. We can chinwag if you have any questions, you're interested in coaching, or just want some general like life advice. I'm all ears. So please get in contact. Or even if you want to share a good story with me, I do a good thing of the day. So if you want to share a good thing that happened in your day, please reach out. I'm always willing to hear the good things that are happening in other people's days.
Finally, the last question is, what is one thing that you're grateful for today?
So I am actually really grateful, and this might sound like, oh, of course you'd say that, is doing this podcast with you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we finally got here. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that we got to speak. I got to obviously hear a bit about you, and you got to obviously hear about a bit about my journey. So I'm really grateful for that, and I hope that this fosters a new like blossoming friendship moving forward. So yeah, what was your grateful thing of the day or good
I
thing?
think, no, I'm not saying this just because you're saying it. I think it was speaking to you. I think I never thought I would automatically say that I would get, like, let me get on the tram. And I think it's that thing, it's like when you see someone else and like, if they can do it, why can't I do it?
Yeah,
Or what's stopping me? The only thing that's stopping me is me.
yeah,
Um, And yeah, I think I'm grateful for this conversation that we had. Um, and it just happened so naturally. And I think, yeah, I think just grateful for that. When you've asked me, nobody's ever asked me that. So I'm glad I had answered this time. Wow, what an incredible journey we've taken with Ams, from a brave decision to confront her anxiety head on to the resilience she built through both setbacks and growth. The story is a testament to the power of vulnerability, healing, and mentorship. It's clear that Ams's journey isn't about overcoming personal struggles, it's about transforming those experiences into a source of strength to help others. The way she reshaped her life and her career through mental health awareness and self compassion is nothing short of inspiring. AMS, your story serves as a powerful reminder that healing isn't linear, and each step forward, no matter how small, brings us closer to the version of ourselves we're meant to be. Your advice on how we can all take charge of our mental wellness, especially as we support others, is something I know will resonate with so many listeners. To all of you out there tuning in, remember the road to mental wellness is unique for everyone, and just because it's tough at times doesn't mean progress isn't happening. If you're struggling or feel stuck, know that you can reach out for support like Ams did, is one of the bravest things that you can do. And to all the mentors, leaders, and warriors out there helping others, take a moment to check in within yourself too. Your mental health matters. Thank you so much, Ams, for sharing your heart with us today. And thank you, listeners, for being here and taking part in this important conversation. Stay iconic. Until next time.